Welcome to the HawkCast with your host, AJ Hawk.
What's up, Brady? How you doing?
Doing awesome, dude. How you Dude, your hair's always looking slick, man. Do you put a lot of gel in that thing, or is it mousse? What's the preferred form of keeping it in place?
Paste? Is it called paste or cement kind of stuff? I don't know.
Okay. Looks good, dude. It's aerodynamic.
I try.
Plus, you got options. See, mine, I don't have options, dude. It's purely shaved head, aerodynamic every day, which I like. Don't get me wrong. And I get a lot of good feedback about it. But hey, you got options, dude. You could go full blown part in the middle.
Part in the middle, yeah, long hair, part
Remember
in the middle.
Remember like the skater hairdo back in the day in the late 90s where they would have a cut like yours and then they'd part it and then have like bangs?
Yeah, I did. I did that. I did that for a while where it was like a long bowl cut and then you flip it up and you shave it underneath. It's called an undercut.
Yes. Yeah. That came from the Kurt Cobain days.
Did it? Yeah, I had that for a little while.
You know who he is, by the way?
Of course I know Kurt. I'm surprised. You know Kurt Cobain?
Dude, because you're a little younger than me, so you just never know if there's a generational gap there. Because you are what, about 10 years younger than me?
Well, I'm 34.
Did you break 30? Oh, you what?
Are you 40 something now? What are you?
No, I'm 38, dude.
You're 38. Wow. Okay.
Okay. I thought you were okay. No, dude, you look so young, man. Way to be. You just look like you're in your 20s. It's great. I think, like we always say, emotionally, and I bet you the way you feel, you're probably like 20, maybe less. Yeah. But physically, you're probably even in the 20s too. So
I think mentally, most guys stay at like 16, 17, don't you think?
Yeah, I think so. Well, I think I've elevated my game to 18.
Maybe. Yeah, I mean, I guess we feel that way. We can get as old as you want, but think when you were 16 years old and you heard someone was 38, you're like, oh, this dude's about to be dead.
I had actually somebody comment. They asked me my age, and I go, I was 38, and they're like, well, what's the matter with you? Most people that are 38 just lie around and are just not willing to do anything, and they don't want to move. And I'm like, what the? Yeah, they were like their low 20s. But yeah, I'm with you, man. When I was that age too, I looked at 38, 40 as like an old fogey, man. But now that I'm at that age, oh no.
Well, that's part of your life great. Now, aren't you? You own fitness equipment. What are you doing? You're selling all kinds of stuff to better the world and keep people in shape. I feel like.
Yeah, man. Well, it's a fitness equipment distribution company. I bought it back in July. And it's all – so basically what happens is that I can't believe I got into this line of work because it never was my plan from the beginning. And it just came because I ended up inventing it's called the XPT. And basically what it is a power rack that's connected to a barbell that has a safety mechanism inside of it, a spotting mechanism. So you can work out by yourself and you can be good. You don't have to ask for a spot. It's phenomenal. And so when I started selling that, I came to realize I was like, it's better to have more than just one option when you're introducing people to the equipment because most people want to buy like a whole gym room full of equipment, not just one piece. Mm-hmm. And so I had the opportunity to purchase a fitness equipment distribution company based here in Los Angeles that's the exclusive distributor of Woodway. And Woodway, as you know, is pretty well-known treadmills, and we've used them, and I've had a lot of experience, so I can tell people when I'm talking about the Woodways from experience, this is what I felt, which I think goes a long way. It's a little different than just stalking in theory. And so that all matched up, and I ended up making the move, and it's been great, man. I've had a fun time doing it. We designed the gyms. We'll take like rec rooms or rooms that were like old storage rooms, and we'll convert them into sweet, top of the line fitness facilities with cardio equipment, strength equipment, stretching yoga areas, sometimes even fitness on demand. I mean, it's pretty fun to kind of be a part of that creation process. But then at the same time, like you're saying, is you get to offer people fitness equipment to where you're going to help them achieve their fitness goals, which, as you and I know, we're all about those kind of things since we're both into that. So it's been fun on a lot of different levels, very challenging because you are running a business. You have employees that sometimes, tick you off, and you got to, just rip into them a little bit. Just set your boundaries. Like, because they'll test you. They're like kids, like your employees. They want to see how far they can take things. How much work can they take off? How much can they talk back to you and push you back? Ooh. And it's quite fascinating when you sort of you just say, okay, these are my boundaries now. I'm not going to move, and I'm a little bit more, you could say, expressive than just that. You have to sometimes speak the language.
I would love to see you as a boss, Brady. I would love to see you try to handle some poor lady emails you and tells you, "Oh, I'm sorry, I couldn't get my foot in the door with this company. We had a great opening, and they just don't seem to want to buy." And it's like a done deal. It should definitely happen. I would love to see you handle that poor old lady.
Oh no, the toughest part is dealing with the public at large. Because you get people, because you're in the service business. We not only just sell fitness equipment, but we're also doing like preventative maintenance services, repairs. And people call us up and they will rip into me as though I was the one doing the repair, or as though it's our fault that their fitness equipment over time with people using it no longer works. And so you have to learn to just be patient. You can't fight back, because at the end of the day, you're always going to be wrong. If you're going to fight with your customers every single time, you're going to be wrong, even if you're right. And so learning that part of it is tough. But the one thing I told those guys, my guys that I work with from the beginning, I said, look, I'm not your boss. And I showed them all the whole client list. I go, these are our bosses. It's like, we got to make them happy. If they're happy, we're great. And then I tell these guys, I was like, look, man, I don't care if you go out and you do backflips and somersaults and you swing from the rafters. If you're doing your work and you're doing it on time and our clients are happy, I'm a happy guy. And so that's how I do my management, dude. Just like how we would like to have been coached when we played, is just go out and make plays, man. And if you don't make plays and you're not productive, you know what? Then we're going to have to make some changes. That's basically the message I've sent to these guys. They've been great, because basically they control their own destiny. And so you're not
a micromanager is what you're saying.
No. I mean, I only get involved when those things of, okay, these are our objectives, doing the repairs, maintenance, keeping our clients happy. If those aren't met, then I get a little antsy. Okay. I get a little ornery. And so, but if everything's cool, then I'm cool, man. I don't even tell these guys when to show up or when not to show up to work. I just say, hey, you got these many visits to do per day. I don't care if you wake up at 10 a.m., come walk into work at noon, and then leave at 4 in the afternoon. If you're still able to get that work done in that amount of time, awesome to you. Keep everybody happy. So it's been fun.
Produce. It's all about production. If you produce, then you're good to go. You'll stay off their back.
Oh, yeah. The best thing too is, man, is like when I hired this one sales guy, I ended up having to let him go, and it was pretty, he let himself go because basically he just didn't make sales, and but in the process of it, he kept begging me to have meetings. And you know me, dude, with us. And he's like, you got to have a meeting. We got to sit down. I was like, dude, we're having a meeting right now. And we're not going to do that. I go, we're not wasting our time to sit down and have meetings of how, okay, we're going to talk in theory. No, what we're going to do is we're going to get on the phone right now. We're going to do a three-way call. We're going to talk things over and we'll get it done. We're not sitting down and having stupid meetings. And he couldn't get over it, because in corporate America, everybody has to have a meeting to talk about the next meeting. So you have like 3 meetings before you actually get to the meeting. And then when you get to the meeting, everybody's so burned out, nobody's listening, and nothing's accomplished. So what I've discovered is to have, and I don't know if this is groundbreaking, but I have meetings without my guys knowing I'm having a meeting.
How does that happen?
So what I do is I'll go in early and I'll catch these guys as they're coming in, getting ready to, my service guys and my sales guys, as they're getting ready to start their day. And I'll just start asking them questions, just giving it, just like we'll start casual conversation. Then we'll just go into, more of the nitty gritty. Hey, what's this going on? What's that going on? Hey, how about if we tried this? Hey, what about this system? Do you think if we did X, Y, Z? And they're just talking to me, just going along, getting ready. And the whole time. And then they leave and go on their day. And I was like, well, there was our meeting. There it is. So wow. We'll see where that takes me. Okay.
Well,
so far it's pretty good.
It sounds like that guy that wants more meetings. He would thrive in an NFL setting, wouldn't he?
Well, it's funny. This last week in church, we had a discussion on how to give a discussion. And I'm like, why don't you just have the discussion? You know what I mean? And I thought exactly, yeah, serious, man. I thought exactly of that in our NFL days, to where we would sit down and say, okay, guys, in our next defensive meeting, what we're going to go over is this, that, and the other, blah, blah. It's like, well, why don't we just go to that meeting and just go over the very thing that you're trying to prep us that we're going to go over? Well, we might actually save some time. You guys might be able to get home early, see your families. I don't know. Maybe you'll catch one of their Little League games. I mean, that's quite the life there. Being a little bit more efficient, man. It goes a long way.
Well, don't you think it's as far as coaching, corporate atmosphere, I feel like it all meshes together. Like you said, you'll have a meeting, say, with an individual coach, and he'll say, all right, guys, in our defensive meeting, we're going to go over this. So he wants to prep you for the next meeting so he doesn't look bad like his guys don't know what they're doing.
Well, yeah, I mean, I get that. If it's going to be like a test, if you sit down and they're going to go over assignments and they're going to want to know that, in position groups that everybody was taught correctly, I get that. But to have a meeting to where you're like giving a bullet point of what all the next meetings are going to be about, oh my goodness, are you kidding me? Get out of here.
You're not a big PowerPoint guy?
Oh, I love PowerPoints as long as they're to the point. I mean, that's what bugs me too. One of my pet peeves, if you have a PowerPoint, ladies and gentlemen, don't read the PowerPoint.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Don't go bullet point. It's okay. Here's my PowerPoint. I'm going to read it to you. No, what you're going to do is you're going to put it up there. You're going to turn around and you're going to basically tell them the story of a paraphrase, and then you're going to let them fill in the details by reading it themselves, which they're already doing. You're going to bore them to death if you're going to read verbatim what the PowerPoint says. All right, on to the next slide. No, it's not how it works.
Do you ever go give like talks outside of your church? Do you give talks to corporate businesses or anything, like where you give a presentation?
Oh, yeah. I did one this last month, or maybe it was March. Where are we at? Maybe I don't know. It was March. Yeah, I went to it was a recreation of Utah. I forget the exact name, but it was all the if you know recreation departments. My dad actually was a rec director when I was growing up, so that's sort of the connection there. But anyway, I went to one that covered all of Utah, and I gave, first sort of an introduction of, how the Parks and Rec district and program helped me, and then I went into, sort of sportsmanship on another kind of collaboration, going back and forth presentation. And so, I had my sweet PowerPoints and, just more to reinforce the message of the content, which I was presenting to them. But it was controversial, man. The very first thing I did, now, I'm a BYU guy and I'm not a big Utah fan, is I made sure all the Utah fans, because I tweeted this and I got some backlash. I got some backlash from some broadcasting bosses. I tweeted this last year when BYU was getting ready to play Utah. I absolutely hate Utah fans. Hate them. And so I had to clear, because there was a lot of Utah fans there. I had to point them out and say, look, it's not that I hate you guys. It's just I hate the decision you made to be a Utah fan, and it didn't go over very well. But hey.
You could have been a Utah guy. What would happen if BYU didn't want you and you went to Utah? You could have been that person.
Yeah, it would have been changed a lot of different things, and that would have, changed my destiny completely. But that didn't happen because Utah recruited me harder than BYU did. I never forget Utah, dude. They came to my high school, and before, I don't know what the rules were back in 1998, which that's when I was getting recruited. Well, actually, it's 97, 98. You were still like in middle school or something like that, weren't you? Maybe a freshman in high school.
Maybe a freshman.
Yeah, but that's before the days of Twitter and all that kind of stuff. And literally, they just pop out of nowhere. So I remember I was in the lunch line, and I was getting ready to have my ritual lunch of the day, which was either pizza and mozzarella sticks, or it was a hamburger and fries and a Mountain Dew or a Pepsi, literally every single day. And I was wondering, why can't I run up and down the court more than 10 times in basketball? Because I usually go to basketball afterwards and not feel like I'm going to just pass out. Well, it's because I ate like crap. But anyway, so I'm in line, and all of a sudden, people are tapping on my shoulder like, there's a guy that wants to see you. And I turn around, and this dude in this bright red shirt with a big Utah emblem on his right chest is sitting there smiling, going, "Hi, Brady." And I'm like, oh. I was like, I'm not going there. So I walk up to the guy, and unlike every other recruit now that wants all the offers, that wants to go on all the visits, I just told the guy to go, "Look, bro, I appreciate you coming, but I'm not going to go to Utah. Don't waste your time. Go talk to somebody else. Invest in somebody else. I'm not going there." And so he's like, "Oh, okay." And then the next day, freaking dude shows up from Colorado, and I'm lifting weights, and I have this BYU shirt on, and he comes in there and he shakes my hand, and he goes, "Would you give us a chance?" And I go, "I hate to break it to you, sir. I'm okay. I'm going to BYU."
Wow.
It's unbelievable. Yeah. So I didn't care about taking my visits. Only other visit I took was to Wyoming, and that was out of due respect to the cowpokes of my home state, and then also to my older brother who had gone to Wyoming. But outside of that, I didn't want to waste my time. I was going to BYU. But
yeah,
there you go.
That's a great segue into my first question I really have for you. What's your problem with Josh Rosen, man? You're all over that dude.
Well, it's not Josh Rosen. I hope
his attitude, I guess his demeanor, what he says afterwards, after he got drafted.
Exactly right. You're exactly right. It's not him. I believe that he's got the basic tools to be great. He can make all the throws. He looks really good doing it too, meaning he's fundamentally sound. He doesn't have a lot of fundamental breakdowns. But the thing that just is my biggest pet peeve, and it's a thing that it's held true throughout football in terms of in the NFL and college, is that this entitlement epidemic, to where if you get anybody coming in that thinks that it's their job's just going to get given to them, that plays are just going to happen because they are who they are, you're not going to have to earn them, that you're just going to show up and everything's going to work out. It's like the absolute recipe for disaster. And so in some ways, it's almost like I want him to hear what I'm telling him just out of kind of wanting to save him from himself. Get what I'm saying? And so his attitude of entitlement, and I actually covered one of his games. It was Texas A&M. I don't know if you remember this, against UCLA early in the season. And UCLA came back from I think it was 4 or 5 touchdowns.
Mm-hmm. It was crazy comeback. Yeah.
Crazy comeback. But in the midst of that comeback, he made 2 throws that were just irresponsible. One was he was getting pressured up the middle, and he heaves up this ball. It was like a pop fly, like an infield fly ball off his back foot. I'm like, what the flip is going? And the safety for Texas A&M goes up to try to catch it. And it slips right through his hands, falls into the breadbasket of the UCLA receiver. Boom, he runs in for a touchdown. I'm like, okay, wow, that was lucky. And then he had a couple of plays like that, and he had another one where he was falling away, trying to throw it out of bounds, went again through 2 hands of Texas A&M defenders into the lap of his receiver. And I sat there, I go, this guy is so good. Why is he doing these stupid things? And it dawned on me, I was like, it's a sense of entitlement. He thinks that he has arrived, that he is greater than the quarterback fundamentals. That's what I felt. And then as he's gone along and the things he said, I mean, they've pulled him out of games early when they felt like they couldn't, between quotations, protect him. I'm like, and he's getting beat up. I'm like, what are you protecting him for? It's about winning. It's about helping your team.
But that's not on him. That's on his coaches for taking him out.
Well, he was look, that's a good point. But I would say if you had a true competitor, there's no way in this world that he's coming out of the game, especially with their team down. They know their best chance to win is with him in the game. If you believe in yourself that much, you feel like, hey, let's just change the scheme up a little bit. Slide protect it. Let me take one guy. I have a quick enough release where I'm going to get it out before he gets here. Also, let's go to quick game. There's other options you can do to protect yourself. He didn't assert himself. He looked at himself like, yep, I got to save myself for the NFL. I forget this college stuff. And then to just tip it all off, his attitude of saying there was 9 mistakes before him, when in fact it's like, no, those guys are excellent football players. They would never even be considered to be picked at that particular position if they weren't excellent. So they were not mistakes. Now, maybe you were overlooked. Maybe you were doubted, which is fine. You can draw some kind of chip on your shoulder motivation from that. But then to go and insult guys before you, to me, was just like the ultimate expression of insecurity and ultimate expression of, hey, man, I should have been the number one guy because it should have been just given to me. That was part of my plan. Did you hear Jim Moore a couple years ago? He said I was just as good as Jared Goff and Carson Wentz, and they went 1-2. Come on, man. You know, and it's like I said, it goes full circle back to the entitlement factor, where it's like, if he keeps that attitude up, and if it's really truly who he is, I can't see him being successful, and it'd be such a tremendous waste of talent, which is a travesty.
Well, I think he clarified his statement afterwards. After he fell, I mean, you can say he fell to number 10 to the Arizona Cardinals. He said they made 9 mistakes, and then he clarified it and said, well, no, I'm just saying the 3 quarterbacks taken before me. I guess he was referring to them. But that's not a new thing, though, Brady. Think about, there's all the kind of people, haven't you heard them? They'll list off all the guys that were drafted before them. I think Draymond Green does that in the NBA. He can name every player that was drafted before him.
Which is fine. It's fine.
Yeah, but isn't that a similar thing that he's doing?
It's similar, but he took it to a level to where he's insulting them. He's demeaning them. You know, and that's where I felt like there's a sense of this entitlement superiority complex to where it's like, I'm greater than them, better than them, therefore I'm going to try to demean them to the point to where I feel better about myself, and I establish, again, this superiority that I'm better. You know, and that's to me where it's wrong. I mean, I have no problem, you know, having a chip on your shoulder being like, hey, man, you guys all passed on me, especially the teams that passed on him. You took quarterbacks other than myself. All right, this is good. I'm going to show you that was an absolute oversight by your part, that I was the best guy. Not taking anything away from them, because they're going to be great too, but that even in their greatness, I'm going to be that much better. If that was your attitude, I think, dude, more power to you. I believe Aaron Rodgers, that's what's fueled him throughout his career. You know, I know him and Alex Smith, after they got drafted, I was with them at the rookie symposium, and I mean, they were getting along great and, you know, bantering back and forth. But you could sense with Aaron that he was on a mission to prove that, hey, I should have been the number one guy drafted. And again, it wasn't trying to demean Alex. He wasn't trying to tear him down. It was purely just a sense of, you know what? I felt like I was worthy of that pick, which, you know, there's probably 20 guys that feel like every guy feels. There's probably guys that are undrafted free agents that feel like they're worthy of that pick, which there's nothing wrong with having that self-belief. It's just when it starts to spill over and you start to demean others, now you're in a world of, you know, some problems, which again leads to issues.
Is Rosen just a guy, though, that's not scared to voice it? A lot of guys have those same feelings, but
that's an excuse.
They won't say it publicly.
That's an excuse. That's an excuse for being a dimwit. You know what I mean? You could say that anything. Well, hey, I'm just being honest, man. I'm just speaking my mind. You're a punk, dude. You don't look good. And it's like, no, you got to have a certain level of, you got to be calculated. A, B, you got to have a certain level of discipline to where you understand the bounds of what is ultimately, basically the scope of your motivation. You know what I'm saying? And if your scope of motivation is that you got overlooked, that's good. But as soon as you start to play into this thing of, hey, you know what? I got to demean others because now I feel a little diminished. Now you're into a world where you're just walking down the wrong path. And he doesn't have that self-awareness yet. And again, I'm going to attribute it to immaturity, and I wish him well. I hope he dominates. I hope he fulfills his potential. But for him to do that, he has to change this, at least perception, because I'm on the outside looking in, but it's, a lot of his actions supported of this entitlement factor.
Don't you think of those first 4 quarterbacks taken in the 2018 draft, isn't there a good chance that Josh Rosen starts more games than those other 3 in this first year?
Oh, no question. And especially since, Sam Bradford, he purely is a guy that if he's healthy and, there's a lot of ifs around him. And so if you got all these ifs around a guy, they're not really hitching their wagon to him. They bought him as this, this kind of insurance policy because they let Carson go or he retired. Mm-hmm. And lo and behold, it's like, whoa, we got to get somebody in here that if we don't draft a guy or a guy's not available when we're looking to draft, that we can at least rally the fan base around and, rally our team. A guy like Larry Fitzgerald, who's in the twilight of his career, you don't want to all of a sudden have some no-name quarterback throwing in these errant passes all over the place. So I get that. But he's in the driver's seat. Josh Rosen should be the starter, all things being equal, meaning injuries, that he gets the offense and that he gels with his teammates, which it sounds like it. I mean, he's got 2 awesome weapons at the very least in David Johnson and Larry Fitzgerald that can help him out. But I believe he's going to get the most opportunities, at least out of the gates, to show what he can do, and we'll see what he does with it.
What are your thoughts on the Browns jumping up and taking Baker Mayfield number 1 overall?
It surprised me because it's very out of the kind of mindset of, most guys when they draft somebody, they're always like, okay, I have somebody in the past that I've worked with or at least been close with that this guy reminds me of that's had success. And if you look at Sam Darnold, to me, he reminded me most of Brett Favre of the whole group that coming out. He's more of an improviser, throws off his back foot, has a strong arm, bigger body kind of guy. And I thought, man, that he is the guy that reminds him most of Brett Favre. He's got to be. And so that was a surprise, but it's not a surprise Baker went as high as he did. I was always high on him. I thought it, and there was 2 games, one against Ohio State last year and the other one against Georgia in the Rose Bowl, to where he lit up 2 elite college defenses, which he'll see, obviously better defenses in the NFL, but similar kind of stuff where you got to under pressure, be able to fit into the tight windows, which I thought he did a phenomenal job, even out of the pocket, which was always the question mark because of his height. So, but I liked him. I like his mentality. He's got the underdog. Speaking of the opposite of entitlement, this guy is the antithesis of what it means to be entitled because he's never been given anything. He's always been a walk-on, always been overlooked. And all of a sudden you get a guy like that drafted number 1 overall. I don't believe he's going to change either. So, I mean, we'll see how it pans out. I like it. And I like the fact that he's going to have to compete with Tyrod Taylor. With old John Dorsey, Alonzo Highsmith, Wolf guys we know really well, implementing the same philosophy that they did with us at the Packers, that competition element to where you have it at all positions and it brings out the best in all those guys. And the Baker, he's had to climb up I don't know how many depth charts through his college career. He's in his element. He's going to have to climb up the depth chart again, and I see him doing well. I see him having a heck of an upside, and it makes sense why they went after him. When Alonzo basically got the gag order removed, going from Ted Thompson, who gives this guy the gag order. Now Alonzo, he's out there, man, I'm going to go give a public presentation and give our whole scouting report on him. I'm going to start tweeting now, which is great. Now they got Hard Knocks coming in town. So we're going to get a full-blown, inside look on how these guys think and operate. So, but no, I like the pick. I thought principally it made sense.
Do you think it's beneficial for a guy like him to sit out and say Tyrod comes in, gets the starting job, which is right as of right now in May? Hugh Jackson says Tyrod Taylor is the starter. Do you think it would be beneficial for Baker to sit for a year?
Depends. It depends on the scheme. Like in Aaron's situation, because he's the ultimate model of sitting and waiting, that was purely a scheme to where he had to adjust his game pretty drastically from what he had perfected and mastered in the college ranks. Even his throwing motion, he had to adjust. So he needed that time to be able to grow into the new scheme, which, now he's a master of.
Well, not really. His motion, really, he had that high. He held the ball so high from Cal. They talked about.
Yeah,
you can't really change your motion, really.
It was holding the ball high to where now he brings it down. He actually, looked as he got that kind of position change, he looked a lot like Brett, which he probably looked at. And so it did benefit him to sit behind a guy like him, for those reasons. But with Baker, it sounds like from what I'm hearing that in Cleveland, they're pretty much just going to run a college offense. And I think that's going to be a trend throughout the whole entire NFL is we're going to run the spread open offenses, a lot of RPOs, run pass options. I mean, the Eagles just went out against supposedly one of the best defenses of defending against the run pass option. It was hilarious because, you had all these Patriots apologists before the game, talking about how well they've defended the run pass options throughout the year. Like they had this rating on run pass option plays. They won 90% of those downs. And lo and behold, they combined with the Eagles defense to give up the most yardage in any game in the NFL's history. So it goes to show you that offense does work and that teams are going to copy it. So being that there's going to be a college, if it holds up, a college offense there in Cleveland, he's going to have every opportunity to start out of the gates. And so I believe it's going to be a legit fair competition, just like with Matt Flynn and Russell Wilson back when Matt Flynn was signed, a big deal to the Seattle Seahawks, and they gave them both, a fair shake to see who wins the spot. So I'd imagine it's going to be the same kind of scenario, and he could still win it.
Going back to the Patriots, what was the deal with Malcolm Butler not playing? Has anything cleared up? I know I give Malcolm a lot of credit. He signed with the Titans, got a big contract, got the money that he deserved. Vrabel brings him in, and he basically took the high road. He didn't slight the Patriots at all, and he tried to explain, okay, this is what happened. They didn't feel I was ready, so I didn't get to play. Why? My whole question with the whole Malcolm Butler benching, why the uncertainty where the starter didn't really even know till pregame, and secondly, why was he even dressed? If he only played one special teams play, he took up a roster spot for someone else that could have been active.
I hope it was something to do with team. Like, this is what I hope it is. And I'll tell you what I hope it is that it was something to do with team rules, and Bill Belichick knew that he couldn't compromise it because if he did, he would basically break his locker room, break his culture. That's what I hope it was, to where it's one of those principal deals to where there's no way he could have played him under those circumstances just based off of the culture of the team. If that's not the case, then old Billy Belichick made the stupidest mistake. Because, I mean, you got Tom Brady questioning about it. You got Amendola guys that, they're wondering what the heck. I mean, it was even to them somewhat of a mystery. The fact that Vrabel goes and signs him also, to me, sort of works against that decision, because it's like, Bill and Vrabel, Bill Belichick and Vrabel, they're really kind of, not the same kind of guy, but they think very similarly about players, having worked together for so long. So, I mean, I hope it was one of those kind of team rule deals to where he just had to send a message to his team and take one and, hope to still win the Super Bowl, knowing that the longevity of the culture would benefit because he made that decision. I hope that was the case. But if it's not having to do with that, then it was just a stupid critical error by Belichick. But I haven't heard that. I haven't heard, as people have analyzed it, that it was a dumb error. I believe there's more to it than we know. I have to think that, because it just would be so out of characteristic for Billy to. I keep calling Billy. Oh, Bill Belichick. Oh, Willie, big Billy. For him to make some stupid critical error like that in the biggest game of the year. I can't. There's no other way to kind of justify to reconcile it other than he was just trying to protect the culture out of team rules or something of that nature.
Yeah, they've denied multiple times that it was about team rules. They said he just didn't have a great week of practice. No, he showed up late. He wasn't there until Tuesday or something. He didn't take the team charter out because he was sick, and then I guess they felt like he was not prepared to play, and it's just a really weird deal. And then you give up all those yards and all those points. Now, if they win the game, if the ball bounces the other way one time and they win the game, Belichick, it's like it's not even talked about.
Yep, it's swept under the carpet. As you win games, you go out and play terrible, and not have any right to win the game, and you win it. Oh, I just sweep everything under the carpet. You go out, you play sweet, you play solid all throughout, and the ball doesn't bounce your way. You lose by a last-second field goal. Oh my gosh, the world is coming to an end. I don't know what's going. You guys are terrible. Get your crap together. You know what I mean? That's the nature of the NFL. But I mean, like I said, it doesn't make sense. Even if he's sick, to me, it's like, dude, if he's your guy, he's like your best player in the secondary. When you're playing one of the best arrays of offensive talent, when you look at the Philadelphia Eagles, especially with a guy like Alshon Jeffrey, what are you doing? I mean, it didn't add up. It's still, and again, the Patriots are the Patriots. They're not going to tell anybody anything, and that's by design. They don't want people to know how they think and operate because they don't want people copying them, because they have some good systems, obviously, for their sustained success. But it doesn't make sense, man. Doesn't add up. Oh, Billy, what you did there. And I'd like to know more about it, because it is fascinating. It's never happened before. I think the closest thing would be the center for the Oakland Raiders, if you remember back in the 2003 Super Bowl, I think it was 2002 season, to where he went off the reservation the night before the game. He went down to Tijuana. I don't know if he was in drugs, but he couldn't play the next day. But it was like, that's the only time I ever heard in a Super Bowl where a guy can't play, and he's like one of your most critical players, and you can justify it pretty much saying that cost you the game.
Yeah, you can. Maybe I guess they thought, hey, Nick Foles is their quarterback. We can do enough as a defense to win this game, and their offense sure as hell did enough, but the defense they couldn't get that last stop they needed. Yeah,
well, that offense is sweet, man. I mean, you know it as good as me because to me, option football is the best football that you can implement. And when you're always putting guys in a situation wherever whatever they choose, they're wrong, which is option football, and you execute it cleanly like they did, I mean, it's a nightmare to have to play against. And then they got weapons all over the place. I mean, you got Selleck, you got Ertz at the tight end positions, 2 stud tight ends that you can both split out. You got Alshon Jeffries. You got the running backs. I mean, it's just, one of those deals to where, even Aguilar, he exploded this year when they moved him into the slot, to where it's like you can't really rotate or overcover on one guy or another, or else you're going to leave somebody else exposed and vulnerable. And it's just, one of those things. But the thing that was impressive was not only that in terms of just how they exploited those matchups, but also Nick Foles, his poise was out of this world. I mean, he was cool, calm, collected, execute at a high level. And the thing is here's a guy who wins. This is another anomaly. Here's a guy who wins the MVP as a quarterback and gets a $2 million raise and gets sent to the bench. Yeah. I've never heard of that in my life. I didn't even know that was possible. If you're a quarterback and you win the MVP in the Super Bowl, I mean, shouldn't you be able to go to the market and say, Kirk Cousins, Jimmy Garoppolo, Derek Carr, they've never won an MVP. Heck, they never even won a playoff game. Yeah. And they got $30 million a year. I get 2. I'm so confused. But anyway, there's stuff happening all the time.
There's the question of if Carson Wentz is going to be ready. Do you think the Eagles will keep Foles around to make sure that Carson Wentz is he's back to who he is, and then possibly trade him before the deadline?
Yeah, I bet you there's something going on there. They've already had experience with Sam Bradford in that same scenario, to where they wait for some team to get extremely desperate, and then they're like, all right, we got a guy, and you get more draft picks, and they've capitalized on those draft picks as they've hit on them. And you got to give Howie Roseman a ton of credit for sort of picking up the broken pieces that Chip Kelly left when he had his disaster, and they gave him full autonomy over the personnel decisions. But yeah, I mean, I said it after the season. I would even be open to trade Carson Wentz. I don't believe that offense was a function of Carson Wentz's greatness when he was doing so well before he was injured. To me, he was a complimentary player that did a nice job of distributing the ball to his playmakers and his weapons. And Nick Foles showed you that he could do the same or even more. I mean, I believe that Super Bowl performance was the most productive performance of that whole offense throughout the year when you consider their opponent, the stage, all those kinds of things. And so I'd be open for both of them, but I don't know if they want to do that. I look at them as, why? Because if Nick Foles becomes your guy financially, you will have to pay him a lot of money. And right now, I believe they're enjoying the luxury of having Carson on that rookie deal, to where they can bring in guys and they don't have that stress of his big deal that's eventually going to be coming up. And then they got the flexibility to do whatever they want with Nick Foles, depending on what offers they'll get. But if they get the right offer, they're going to pull a Sam Bradford and he'll be off somewhere else. You just better hope the place he goes has a scheme that will be similar to the one he implemented in the Super Bowl.
Well, Carson Wentz, they're in a weird spot. They won the Super Bowl. Nick Foles plays out of his mind. You wonder if he can consistently play that way over a 16-game season. But Carson Wentz was on track to win the MVP before he got hurt.
You think?
Yeah, you don't think?
I don't think so. Not my definition of the MVP. I mean, my definition of MVP, it would have Tom Brady won it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he was the guy the full way.
I'm not saying he pretty much bad year or anything, but Carson was playing unbelievable before he got hurt.
He was good. I just looked at him as simply a guy that was a function of a ton of really good offensive weapons around him. That's how I looked at him. But, whereas Tom Brady, he was the inverted of that. He was awesome, and everybody else's success around him was a function of him. And that's where I look at the difference, because if you pulled one of those guys out, obviously the Eagles, you pull out Carson Wentz, they were able to sustain success. But if you pull out Tom Brady and you throw in, who was his backup again? Hoyer? Oh, boy. I don't know. I mean,
right.
anything can happen.
Same. True.
Anything can happen, but you just never know.
That's true. What about the Packers releasing Jordy Nelson? What's your thoughts on that?
Oh, goodness. You know what? They got to get their stuff together. At the end of the day, you got to have a couple guys. John Kuhn, TJ Lang, obviously Aaron's one of those guys. AJ, you should have been one. Tauscher. These guys, you got to choose. Well, Tauscher ended up being somewhat of a lifer. You got to choose them as your lifers, man. And the reason is you look at leadership. They are lacking leadership like you wouldn't believe. And it's because this old philosophy of, okay, we got to get rid of a guy before the wheels fall off. Because Jordy still's got tons of tread on the tire. I mean, if he didn't, why would somebody in Reggie McKenzie's world, who's very versed in football players and knowing guys, why would he go give him the money he gave him and sign him so quickly? He knows he's got it in him, and so does other teams. So to me, it's like, if you're the Packers, you got to commit to those guys, make them lifers, and if they fall a little bit with their physical production, you justify it as, fine, we got ourselves a leader in the locker room. We got a guy that can stabilize, a critical situation because he can bring poise, experience. So you got all these intrinsic things that aren't your raw productivity that you can easily use as justification to keep the guy around. And the Patriots are like the best example of that. You remember, you and I would watch film of Teddy Bruschi, bless his heart. 2 or 3 years there, it's like, this guy, he can't keep up with the tight end. He's getting blown up in the running game. He's slow. He's stiff. Why is he out there? I mean, what is going on? But yeah, here they are, contending for, maybe, I don't remember if they won a Super Bowl in that stretch, but it's like, what are they doing? And lo and behold, he retires. And then it comes to find out Bill Belichick's like, yeah, this is like a perfect player. I'm not going to let him go. It's like, well, it makes sense, and Jordy fits right into that mold. Blue collar guy. He's going to go and show up with a positive attitude. He's going to work his tail off. He's going to help the young guys. Didn't make sense. And I would say it's an absolute critical error on their end.
I agree. I think he can play. Jordy is an absolute stud. I don't think physically he has fallen off. They're like, oh, look at his numbers last year. Well, guess what? Aaron Rodgers got hurt. Aaron got hurt. It doesn't matter. That's it right there. And you mentioned all the things that Jordy brings. And at the same time, Jordy would have been willing to take a huge cut. I think he even has said that. Where
they didn't even talk to him about that.
What's that?
You know what I mean? They didn't, from my knowledge, they didn't even present him with a pay cut.
I don't think they. Yeah, I think they did. They offered him. They basically offered him nothing really, and he would have played for incentives. They give him incentives to reach any kind of deal. But Jordy's the type of guy that didn't care. Where he's in Kansas, I've been back there. Where he's from, he's a huge outlier when it comes to stud receivers. To where he's not selfish. Not a prima donna. Yeah, he's not selfish. He has a great rapport with Aaron. He's an absolute stud. He can fly down the field, can do everything, play every position, every receiver position, and he's a stabilizing influence on that room and that whole team. So it's weird. It doesn't make sense. Now they brought in Jimmy Graham, which I think Jimmy's going to be an absolute stud for them. I just saw Jimmy a couple of weeks ago, an absolute physical presence. That dude, he may catch 20 touchdowns this year, by the way.
Yeah, he's a good player. But that exchange though, again, it doesn't. They didn't get out on top with that exchange.
You could have brought Jimmy in and kept Jordy for a reduced salary.
Yeah, I'm with you. But going back to your point too about Aaron got hurt, that was a huge coaching error. Now Mike, he put it on his offensive staff. That's why he fired Van Pelt. He fired Edgar Bennett. And it was because here you have this guy in Brett Hundley who is a running quarterback. You have all these teams, whether it's the Kansas City Chiefs, you have Carolina, you got the Seattle Seahawks. When Deshaun Watson was rolling in Houston before he tore his ACL, they were doing it. Obviously, the Philadelphia Eagles with Carson Wentz. You got all these teams running college spread offenses with RPOs, with the option built into it, having tremendous success, and the Packers aren't willing to go down that road? Are you freaking kidding me? That was probably the greatest coaching mishap I've ever seen. You go down that road. You turn your offense into a college offense. You build in the read option. You build in the run pass options. You basically just say, what kind of offense did you run in college there, Brett? We're going to do that here. Didn't do it. And lo and behold, guys like you said, guys like Jordy and others, that they ended up having their numbers drop because you have a quarterback that's, basically being asked to do something that's outside of his wheelhouse. You have a square peg, round hole kind of situation. And so it was a complete cultural and organizational failure by the Packers this last year that not only cost them Jordy, but also I would say Brett Hundley, who I believe they're obviously looking to replace to bring in Deshaun Kaiser. So it's one of those things to where you make a couple of decisions that lead to, a couple of outcomes that ultimately turn out to, you're actually putting, on your long-term sustainability aspect, putting a dent into that. And so, yeah, having Jordy gone is a huge mishap, but I'm with you. You can't justify his numbers as being a justification because you had a quarterback that wasn't being asked to do the very thing he does well, play quarterback. So of course his numbers, obviously receivers are connected to the quarterbacks. How they go, the receivers go.
But can you overhaul your offense? So Aaron gets hurt. Can you overhaul in that season?
Are you kidding me?
With 6 days or whatever?
Are you kidding me? Listen to this. The Packers, I believe, if you look at the numbers, ran 11 personnel, which is one back, one tight end spread, 75% of the time. And those run pass options. It's simply like, okay, we're going to run a zone play, but hey, the tight end, we're going to have you continue to run up the seam. Or we're going to have the receiver stop on one of those hitch screens. And we're just going to ask the quarterback in this moment to where he can hand the ball off just like a regular, zone play. Or he's going to have two other options and another third option to where he could keep it and run if he feels like the defense is showing the right look. Are you telling me? I just drew up basically two small little adjustments that you could draw in the dirt on the sideline in the middle of a game as long as your offense is used to running spread. And in the shotgun, which they do with the offset back, I don't know what to tell them. That's why it's so inexcusable. The only thing I could think of, the reason why they didn't do that, and I'm trying to connect the dots here. They fire Edgar, they fire Van Pelt, is I imagine they had been teaching Brett Hundley, the intricacies of playing in the pocket. And I can imagine they felt like he was ready to do it. And they were probably slamming the table saying, no, we don't have to revert back to this college offense. He can do the things Aaron did. We can just stick with what we've been doing. And I believe they were so focused and stubborn on it that it ultimately led to not only their demise as coaches with the Packers, but it also led to Brett struggling because he's a guy that it's like in basketball. In basketball, it's a rhythmic game. Playing quarterback's the same thing. You got to get guys into rhythm, and these running quarterbacks throughout their whole lives have ran to have success. What gets them into the game and gets them into rhythm is running. And also having that in the back of their head when they're putting the ball in the belly of a running back in a zone read situation or a zone running situation to where they're like, hey, I can pull it and run. But then you have two other different layers to where you can pull it and pass too, to where you're not fully exposing the guy. So it wouldn't have been a hard adjustment. And they're already like 90% of the way there. And Mike, he's buddies with Urban Meyer. Urban Meyer is the pro at running the spread, power, and all those option plays. Give him a call. Have Frick Dom. He's hanging out with him on a daily basis. Give him a call and say, hey, bro, what do you suggest is some tweaks we could do? This isn't hard stuff, man. And so, yeah, to me, it's inexcusable to say it had taken too long and overhauled the offense because it's not the reality. It's little small adjustments they'd had to make.
Is that sustainable, though, to have a running quarterback? You named two guys, Deshaun Watson, Carson Wentz, both. They're not running every play, but both those guys tore their ACL. Can you do that for long-term success?
Oh, yeah. You look at Russell Wilson. The dude, what is he? Probably 5'8", 150 pounds. I just exaggerated. He's probably 6 foot, 200? Sure. Little dude. And he's led the league in rushing for a quarterback, I don't know how many years in a row. And it's because he's mastered the art of avoiding the big hits. And the thing too is when we say option football, so many people want to go back to the mid '80s when Oklahoma had the full house backfield, and remember the quarterbacks, they'd run the hill line after they would, they carry out the fake, right? And they'd be running basically to the unblocked defensive end or outside backer, which at that point you could just tee off on the guy because you're like, you can make the claim, I don't know if he has the ball or not. And so everybody when they think option football thinks of that. But when you're in the shotgun, it is so hard to get a hit on the quarterback if he hands the ball off and, sort of standing there because he's not moving in theory at the same kind of rate and at the angle to the last guy in the line of scrimmage who's unblocked. So that's one element that I do believe is a misconception. And then if you got a guy who's a runner, the biggest thing you needed, and this isn't even just a guy who's a runner, this is the next level stuff. And Aaron, he picked this up after he got concussed a couple of times. It was in 2010. Is you got to teach your quarterbacks just as much as you got to teach them reading progressions and reading coverages and, the fundamentals of throwing the ball and setting your feet. You got to teach them how to slide and avoid hits. Mm-hmm. You look at RG3. He's the greatest example of a guy that he almost like would look for hits. And it's like, dude, it's going to catch up to you after a while. Those dudes are, they're big and fast, and they're going to come with bad intentions. I mean, you don't want to sit there and try to put your shoulder down and gain an extra yard. I mean, get out of bounds and live another day. Even Mike Vick took him a while to figure that out. And so with the evolution of the running quarterback, as long as they're able to learn the fundamental of avoiding big hits, which is sliding, getting down early, getting out of bounds. And I mean, come on, the rules of the NFL already are supporting protecting the quarterback. It's more than sustainable. And so, I mean, to me, it's just the beginning of a new generation of quarterback to where, and I predict it. I believe in the next kind of cycle of guys, the Adrian Petersons of the world, these guys that grew up in these generations in the past being like, we're going to be the main stud running back. You watch a lot of those guys are going to transition to being quarterbacks to where they're going to have that running ability because they know, hey, the money's better because you're far more valuable throwing the ball than just running it. So we know that the running backs are dime a dozen. And then secondly, more and more teams are going to open themselves up to running quarterback as more and more of these types of offenses continue to be successful.
What if you can't throw? Like, what do you know?
Then you're in trouble.
Can Adrian Peterson throw?
Well, no. What I'm saying is he would have developed that element instead of just completely focusing on I'm going to be a running back. He just said, you know what, I'm going to still be a cool runner because I got that ability naturally, but I'm going to work on throwing. I'm going to go to, how many 7-on-7 camps they have. And instead of playing running back or the slot receiver, I'm going to go play quarterback. And I'm going to work on throwing the ball. And at the same time, I'm going to have in my back pocket the ability to tuck it and run. And so I believe those extremely freakish, capable athletes that used to always be running backs, they're going to start converting themselves into quarterbacks.
Well, it would be smart. You're right. The value of the running back position is way down. Now, it's hard to say that with Saquon Barkley going number 2 to the Giants this year, and was basically the number 1 prospect on the board, but it's just, do you value running back that much? The Giants did. It's a safe pick, no question. I think he's going to be really good, but, do you put that much value in the running back spot? And even if you do, there's a short lifespan for that of how long they will value him as that number 1 guy.
Oh, yeah. Well, see, Saquon, he's – this year's version of Christian McCaffrey. And you look at David Gettleman, he was the general manager with the Carolina Panthers when they drafted Christian McCaffrey last year, 8, 9, something in the top 10. So obviously he's high on those kind of hybrid running backs. Kamara showed us one thing, though. He showed us that, you know what? A, they're extremely potent because he turned out to be that kind of guy. But B, you can find him later in the rounds, too, in the draft. Because here's the thing that I have a problem with Saquon is his ability to run between tackles, man. He didn't want to do that. You look at the best game is you go back to the Ohio State game where he had to basically put his pads down, find a crease, and just blow up in there, get a yard, or heck, just even get back to line of scrimmage. He was never willing to do that. He was always trying to bounce it. He would lose 3-4 yards trying to hit the home run. And to me, that's because the coaches, Franklin, he's not going to tell him, hey, man, just, bounce every play, even though you're losing 3 yards. Let's start with 2nd and 13 instead of 2nd and 10. No, nobody's telling him that, which tells me that he didn't have the commitment nor the toughness to stick his head up in there and get those tough yards and basically set up those bouncing plays. That to me is the most concerning part because the key of those dual threat running backs is the fact that they're dual threats, is that they can run and they can catch. Because if not, they turn into a Reggie Bush. Remember what we did with Reggie Bush? Whenever he come on the field as a back, we would take off me and we would put in a defensive back. And we're like, we're going to treat him as a receiver. And we're just going to cover him like a receiver. And that's what every team did. And Reggie had a great career. Don't get me wrong. But was he worthy of being the number 2 overall pick? I don't know. I would say not, since you could find guys like that in 3rd, 4th round. And I look at Saquon in the same kind of way.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if I see Saquon in the same. I think he can run between the tackles. I don't know. I think he's done it at times, but he definitely has the physical tools for that. Does he have the mental capacity to, like you said, put up in there and get those tough yards? Yeah. But it's also at the same time, it's one of those things when he's a home run hitter, you'll put up with him losing 2 or 3 yards every once in a while because he can break a 70-yarder and wow the crowd. Yeah, he's got to do it. But in the NFL, it reminded me that when we played Reggie Bush, I think it was week 2 or 3, his rookie year. Mm-hmm. He came out the same year you did, right? My rookie year, yeah. Yeah, we were playing the Saints, and I played against Reggie Bush a couple times in college. We played USC at BYU, and he would bounce plays and run in for touchdowns in college. But I remember one play in particular. He was their featured back. They handed the ball off, and it was an inside zone play. And sure enough, he goes up inside and tries to bounce it. And we had Nick Collins playing safety, who's a heat-seeking missile, runs a 4.3 40 easy.
And Nick flies in there and just chops him down for a 3-yard loss. And I come following up, sort of in the way. And I go to Reggie and I put my hand on his shoulder. I go, Reggie, that's not going to work in the NFL, man. You're not going to be able to bounce with dudes like this. And he looked at me like, huh? Oh, okay. And it didn't. And the only way bouncing really is going to be effective is you have to sell the defense that you're willing to pump it up in there, punch it up in there a couple times to where all of a sudden maybe you get that outside guy kind of biting on, the running back, punching it up in there, even maybe the safety coming up to where he doesn't have that same angle if he does try to bounce it. So we'll see how it pans out. Again, I wish him the best. I wish all these young prospects the best, okay? Mm-hmm. I hope they're successful. I'm not saying I hate these guys and I don't want to be successful. I'm just telling you from a pure analysis point to where there's things that just don't add up. To me, principally, to where if you're drafting a multi-talented running back, the guy's got to be multi-talented. You know what I mean? He just can't be a stud athlete that's fast. And when he, gets a big return or a big reception, you think, well, he'll fix it in the running game. We'll get him going there. I mean, at number 2, you don't want a guy like that. You want a turnkey guy, a guy you can stick in there and just let him work, just like McCaffrey was this last year for the Carolina Panthers, who did a great job, his first year of running and catching the ball in the backfield, creating nightmares for defenses and things of that nature. And so, we'll see how it goes. Yeah.
Well, Brady, my final question: Who's your Super Bowl prediction? Your early. This is May, like May 18th right now. Who do you think is going to win the Super Bowl?
Whoa, man! I'm just coming off the last Super Bowl. Well, I mean, look, the Philadelphia Eagles were driven this whole last year by this underdog mentality. Now they're no longer underdogs, so they're in a far more difficult circumstance to be in. Being here that I'm in Los Angeles, I'm going to go out on a limb. And I know there's some crazy volatile personalities on this defense. I mean, there's a potential of a nuclear explosion of controversy with Aqib Talib, Marcus Smart, Ndamukong Suh, and then, you got other guys still there that,
Marcus
it could turn out.
Marcus who?
Marcus Smart,
Peters?
The quarterback.
Marcus Peters.
Oh, Marcus Peters. That's right. Oh, okay. I'm thinking of the player for the Celtics. Sorry. Okay. But yeah, Marcus Peters. You got Marcus Peters, Aqib Talib, and Ndamukong Suh. All additions to this defense. They could be unbelievable. Mm-hmm. And then you couple that already with the explosive offense. They get what's his last name? Cooks from the Patriots as that deep threat, coupled with Gurley. I look at the Rams as being the team that if they get their stuff together, again, it's Wade Phillips has got one heck of a job here of keeping everybody mentally kind of chilled out, not to let them all of a sudden explode.
I love Wade Phillips. Do you see his comment? They asked him, like, oh, how are you going to manage all of these guys? He said, I don't manage guys. I coach them. And I was like, it's a great answer, Wade. And Wade seems to have the personality that he can make those guys gel and let them be themselves, but also they all know they're all fighting for one goal.
Exactly. So, I mean, if anybody can do it, I'm telling you, it's him. So when I look at it on paper and where we sit right now in May of 2018, about 9 months away from the Super Bowl, I'm looking at the Los Angeles Rams, guys. That's what I think is going to be playing for the Super Bowl and winning it.
All right. I don't know if I'm with you, but
Who's your team?
I don't know, man. It's okay. The hard thing is if A-Rod stays healthy, then they're always in the conversation.
They're in there. 100%. I'm with you.
The Patriots are always in the conversation as long as Tom Brady's there and he's healthy. It's tough to ever pick. I love what the good thing that I think the Rams have going for them. They have McVay, who's an amazing head coach. He understands it. He gets it. His players buy in. But it's tough to be the Eagles now after all of this hype. It was a magical year what they did. But I love Doug Peterson. I think there's a changing tide of the NFL culture that Doug Peterson is bringing in. Guys like McVay. I don't know if you saw the videos like the night before the Super Bowl. The Eagles, there's videos getting out of them in their meeting room dancing, having a great time. They're very loose. And it all played out. Like Peterson just seems to have a great balance of letting guys be themselves, but they also know who the boss is. So I love those coaches that are able to do that.
I'm with you.
It's cool to see. It's like, wow, these guys are really having a lot of fun while they're on this run. Usually it's like, once they win the Super Bowl, teams look back and say, man, that was awesome. But day to day, it was an absolute grind. And they struggled.
Yeah. So. Well, it's cool about McVay, too. I learned this last year with my radio partner, Steve Hartman. So when McVay first came into town, the first thing he did, or one of the first things, is he reached out to Jared Goff's close friend in the Bay Area. And apparently Sean McVay had gotten word that he had this good buddy of his who was his roommate that was sort of like the Jared Goff whisperer, sort of settled his mind and everything. And he's like, hey, man, why don't you come down to Los Angeles here and spend some time with us? And so he brings down his buddy. And so it was just one of those kind of intuitive, hey, man, let's do anything we can to get our guys comfortable and get them in a position where they're loose. And I thought that was maybe one of his best moves, at least at the quarterback position, to bring his buddy down to sort of settle his mind, loosen him out a little bit. And, it was just one of those details of McVay thinking outside the box, and I see that with Shanahan. I see Doug Peterson, Nagy, with the Chicago Bears who, worked with Doug Peterson with the Kansas City Chiefs when he was there, and these guys they're making the NFL almost like what we always, when we were playing, thought it should be. You know what I mean? Like, this is what it should be, man. It should be a little bit more relaxed. You don't have to be so uptight all the time. You don't have to, sweep stuff under the carpet. And, it's a little bit more progressive, which is fun to see.
It is. Sweep it more like sweep it under the rug. It's hard to get the edges of that carpet up, Brady, unless you're living in your college house.
I have a tool that you could go pick up the edge of the carpet and sweep anything under there and put it back down. You won't even know it's there.
Okay.
Trust me.
All right.
Yeah, man.
Sounds good. All right, Brady. Thanks for coming on, man. I appreciate that.
Anytime, buddy. You know that. Anytime. As long as I have time, dude.
Yeah.
It's been crazy, bro, man. I'll tell you, man.
Busy man out there in L.A. You're just running things, man. You got tons of kids. You're speaking at your church. You're going to become an elder. You are an elder already. I'm
an elder, man. I've been an elder since I'm 18. And by the way, you could become one too.
My bad.
Did you know that?
I know. I just want you to I want to come to the temple, though. I need to come to the temple first. You won't let me in. You won't let me in.
Are you kidding me? You come in anytime you want to an open house.
Yeah, exactly.
And then also, dude, this is what you got to do. To get in the temple is easy, dude. All you got to do is convert to the church first and foremost.
Okay.
Second thing is you pay 10% of your tithing to the church, and then you got to.
Is that net or gross?
It depends. It's the pure definition is the net of your interest gained, whatever that is. Okay.
Okay.
So it's kind of personal. It's not any kind of hard fast rules. Then you gotta give up your cigar smoking habits. Can't drink any alcohol.
Cigars aren't against the rules for Mormons.
Well, it's against the word of wisdom.
Is nicotine against the? You tell me no one at BYU dips?
Oh, nobody. They'll get kicked out, bro. Especially at BYU.
You don't think anyone's dipping in the room behind closed doors when they go to bed?
They could be. There's no question about that. But I'm just telling you, I just gave you right there the way to get into the temple. Anybody who does that can get into the temple anytime they want.
Well, if I'm out there, you have to take me to an open house, Brady. It'll be fun.
Or you can just convert, dude. You can go in all the time you want. I think they're gonna have a temple out there in Ohio soon enough.
I feel like I feel like I already know so much history of the church from rooming with you for 5 or 6 years.
You're great.
All right, man. Thanks a lot for coming on. I'll talk to you.
We'll talk to you later, buddy. Be good. Bye-bye.
We're glad you could join us for today's conversation. After you subscribe to the show, head over to thehawkcast.com or reach out to AJ directly on Twitter at @officialAJHawk to recommend future guests that will help us inspire people to keep talking. Thanks again, and we look forward to speaking with you next time on the HawkCast.